conversou com um dos principais defensores dos direitos humanos do Irã, que está no Brasil, e fala sobre o que se pode esperar da vinda de Ahmadinejad.
O iraniano Payam Akhavan já foi apontado pelo Fórum Econômico Mundial como um líder global. Teve atuações importantes em julgamentos no Tribunal Penal Internacional de Haia. Trabalhou para a ONU no Timor-Leste, na Guatemala e no Camboja. PhD pela Faculdade de Direito de Harvard, Payam falou ao Jornal das 10 sobre um assunto que vai ganhar destaque na Rio+20. A presença do presidente Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, líder de um país que, para o nosso entrevistado, considera o Brasil um amigo.
Iran is very isolated today in the international community, so President Ahmadinejad wants to come to Rio to show that Iran still has friends, and of course Brazil is one of the most significant democracies in the global south, so he wants to demonstrate that we have friends like Brazil.
But is Brazil a friend of Iran nowadays?
Well, I think a lot of people in Iran would see it that way. Certainly under the government of President Lula, there were very close ties between Brazil and Iran. There's $2.5 billion of trade in 2011. Brazil recently has changed its position, for example, voting in favor of the UN human rights resolutions against Iran, but I think that Brazil needs to go much further. And when President Ahmadinejad comes here, he keeps his program in part secret because he knows that wherever he goes, people like myself and others will be protesting against him, will be exposing the human rights violations of the regime. So I think it's very important that Brazil send the right message to the president of Iran, that the Brazilian government stands not with a tyrannical regime that tortures and murders its own citizens, but that it stands with the Iranian people, who were among the first in the Middle East before the Arab Spring, 2 years before the Arab Spring, to come out into the streets in the millions and say, we want democracy, we want respect for human rights.
So, and what kind of message do you think that Ahmadinejad will bring to Brazil during the conference? He will talk about, of course, about the nuclear energy, but do you think that it will be good for the UN conference? Have some strong leader talking about it?
My sense is that President Ahmadinejad will use Rio as a propaganda platform, and of course the nuclear issue will be raised again, and the impression which we will get is that Iran is a human rights paradise, that it has a government that is democratic, that is legitimate, there are no human rights violations, that the nuclear program is purely civilian, and that, you know, the evil Americans and Israelis are responsible for all the problems of the world. Well, the reality is very different. The reality is that the Iranian regime is hardly democratic. It rules through violence, through torture, through intimidation, through religious persecution, and the nuclear program, unfortunately, has become the exclusive focus of the international community. The problem is not Iran's nuclear program. The problem is the nature of the regime. The democratic regime does not need to militarize, does not need weapons to have legitimacy. So if the international community helps the people of Iran achieve their dream, which is to have a government just like the one you have here in Brazil, a government where a former political prisoner and torture victim and a woman can be elected president. This is what we want in Iran. Once you have solved that problem, the nuclear issue will solve itself.